vibration magnetometer. Okay, so the other day we started discussing this. It is another instrument which is used generally to measure uh, magnetic moments or magnetic field of a single bar magnet or any other magnet, as well as comparison of magnetic moments also. So we basically started discussing the principle the other day. So we may recollect that the structure is basically there is a glass box, right? Inside the glass box a freely suspended magnet is kept. I told the other day also that what is the meaning of a freely suspended magnet? So what is a freely suspended magnet? See, it has two planes of rotation basically. Okay, so when we say it's a freely suspended magnet, this is let us assume that this is a magnet and there is a suspension from the top. This is a wire for suspension, and this is the north-south pole of the magnet, let us say. Now a freely suspended magnet should be able to rotate on this plane like this, as well as about an axis vertical to the plane, that is up or down. So two such rotations should be possible on any freely suspended magnet. So in this box we have such a magnet which is capable of freely rotating about an axis, and there is a torsion head connected to this magnet. You can see that there is a torsion head and there is an adjusting screw, and the whole thing is kept in a container, and the magnet is kept parallel to the what is called as the magnetic meridian. So I already mentioned what is the magnetic meridian. You know now that it is a plane. Magnetic meridian is sometimes even it is referred to as a line also, but generally it is a plane that connects the north pole, south pole, and a point on the earth. Any point, it may be any place on the earth, because any point on the earth will have coordinates, right? We know that it will have coordinates. Generally when we say that it is how many degrees north, how many degrees south or east, west, like that, right? That is called coordinates on earth. Therefore generally these 3 points, if they are connected, that is the poles of the earth. By poles we mean actually the geographic poles. So the poles on the earth as well as any other point on the earth, if you connect, you will get meridian. So any meridian is therefore a plane actually. So there are two types of meridian: geographic meridian and magnetic meridian. So geographic meridian connects a geographic north pole and south pole along with any point on the earth. And similarly magnetic meridian will be another plane with respect, this is with respect to the geographic magnetic north pole and magnetic south pole. And we know magnetic north pole and south pole are opposite to this, so we have south on top and north at the bottom. Therefore that will also make another plane, and therefore you can imagine that there will be an angle between these two planes, and we discussed about that angle in detail. That is called the declination, right? We discussed that alpha and all, right? So here that is magnet is suspended in the magnetic meridian, and this instrument can be used to measure the magnetic field strength, the magnetic moments of any other magnet, using this magnet inside this box. Now the torsion head purpose is it should have a restoring force, that is outside any magnet you are bringing close to this, that magnet will be affected by the magnet inside, and therefore it will start rotating. Now a torsion head will ensure that this rotation is countered by the rotation given by the torsion head, and therefore we will be able to measure the balance the forces. So the basic idea here is therefore to first measure what is called the time period of oscillation of this experimental magnet, that is how much time it takes for us Yes. Vasanta. Vasant. Saish is ఎంత కొట్టలేదండి ఇది. ఓ ఇందాక చెప్పలేదమ్మా, మరి ఇప్పుడే ప్రశ్న చేయాలి అవ్వట్లేదు. అది ఇందాక క్లిక్ చేశాను కానీ స్టార్ట్ చేద్దాం. వసంత్. రైట్. సో ఐఎమ్ టాకింగ్ అబౌట్ దిస్ మ్యాగ్నెట్. ఇప్పుడు కనిపిస్తుందమ్మా, స్క్రీన్ కనిపిస్తుంది కదా ఇప్పుడు? సో బేసికలీ దిస్ magnet inside this box, right? This is arrangement in the vibration magnetometer. Now when we are bringing an external magnet, this magnet can rotate. So I already mentioned here in this diagram, I thought that it is visible, but here you see this is the magnet inside, and it has a probability of a possibility of rotating in this plane as well as that is in this plane itself as well as perpendicular to the plane. Those are the two possible rotations that we are trying to show for a freely suspended magnet, right? Then we know what is the meridian. Magnetic meridian is a plane that is connecting the magnetic south pole, north pole and any other point on the earth. So 3 points are going to be on this plane, and you can imagine that this plane is cutting through the earth. It is cutting through the earth. That is how magnetic meridians are generally assumed. So the plane will go through the earth from a point on the earth. It can be any city or any place on the earth, and it will go through the point on that point on the earth as well as two other points. What are the two other points? Magnetic poles, south pole and north pole. Now when you place a magnet on the earth in the magnetic meridian that is parallel to the magnetic meridian, that is how we have to start any magnetic measurement. So that is how it is also arranged here. As I mentioned already, what we are measuring in this experiment, we are measuring the time period of oscillation of the experimental bar magnet, right? It has a magnetic moment m. So we have to balance the oscillation of the magnet present inside the torsional this thing balance to the magnet that is brought from outside, so that its time period can be measured based on this period of oscillation. Which period of oscillation of this inside magnet, right? The other day also we discussed about this relationship, which is time period, that is the time taken for the magnet to have one oscillation. So it starts from a point inside and it rotates completely, full one rotation like that, from let us say from this point it goes like this, making one full rotation on this side, and then again goes back to the same position again. That is considered as one oscillation. How much time it is taking is given by this expression. We have to remember this result, very very important result. Any problem on vibration magnetometer, if you know one result, you can solve. So this is nothing but time period is 2 pi times square root of moment of inertia I. all our previous expressions in the last chapter on magnetism and all, current is given as capital I. Of course, in some places small I also we must have used for solenoid and all. But generally here, when vibration magnetometer you are studying, you should remember that I is moment of inertia divided by capital M, you know, it is magnetic moment of the bar magnet, divided by also the horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field H. Already we discussed what is the horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field H, right? Now we discussed a set of applications for this, starting from first application being comparison of the horizontal components of Earth's magnetic field at two different places. So you can use this instrument in two different places, and as I already mentioned, the horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field will vary throughout the Earth. So whether you go latitude wise or longitude wise on the surface of the Earth, if you measure the horizontal component, because see in our Earth, if you assume that this is the spherical surface of the Earth, you have, you know, that longitudinal lines everywhere. You can imagine many actually, but for representation we are drawing only a few. Then you have latitudes. So any point on the Earth can be therefore easily identified as a location on the Earth using coordinates. Right. Now from one point to any other point if you go, magnetic properties will vary. As I already mentioned, three properties will vary. That is the declination, the inclination, both are angles, right? Like declination and inclination. We can say alpha and theta. Theta is also called as the dip angle or angle of dip. And the horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field. So B is the Earth's magnetic field. In that, horizontal component is a vector, B vector. In that there are two, you can say the B small e or capital E, it doesn't matter. It has two components, horizontal and vertical. The horizontal component is theta, let us say this is theta, so this is horizontal component, H cos theta. So rather B cos theta is H actually, so you can write B cos theta because this is B. This is B sin theta. So at any place a magnet will dip by a small angle, that angle is called as the dip angle. We already discussed this also, right? This angle. So a magnet will rotate and then dip. Rotation and alignment along the meridian first. So if you say this is the magnetic meridian, a magnet will first align along this direction. This is the magnetic meridian. And then it will dip also. Dip by a small angle called dip angle. So automatically this will happen for any magnet. So one can easily identify the magnetic meridian, and then one can also measure the dip at a particular place using a dip circle. We know the instrument name also called as dip circle. Right, in the present experiment, we don't even measure the dip. All we do is to align the magnet in the magnetic meridian because it is a freely suspended magnet, and to measure the magnetic field, that is Earth's magnetic field H, at two different locations using the same instrument. So that is the first application of this instrument. How we will do? We will compare the time period that is measured in these two different places, and we will see that the square of the time periods is inversely proportional to the horizontal component of the Earth's magnetic field. What do you mean by square of the time period? T square, that is the first time period measured in one place and the second time period measured in another place. If the time periods are taken to be T1 and T2, and if you square them, T1 by T2 ratio, that will be inversely proportional to the horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field in those 2 points. So let us say in this first location, I call this location as A. Let me call the second location as B. Let the horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field at this location be, let us say, H1. That is at location A. Let the horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field at location 2 be H2, that is B. Now the ratio of H1 to H2 is going to be inversely proportional to the square of the time periods. So it is going to be T1, not T1 by T2 by T1, T2 by T1 whole square. Because in our relationship we see that our time period relationship is like this, 2 pi square root of I by mh. If you square on left side and right side, you will know that t square becomes proportional to 1 by h. So from there we can get time periods in two different places. Compare the time periods. Let us say in the first place the time period may be 5 seconds. In the second place the time period may be 10 seconds. So the magnetic field is therefore 2 times, because this ratio is 1 by 2, so the magnetic field ratio is 2 times. So H1 by H2 will be therefore 2. In fact, square of this 2, that is 4 times. So it is square, right? So here it is square, so it's 4 times. So if we compare between points A and B, therefore the horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field may be increasing by 4 times. This is how one can conclude based on this result, right? Next, one can also measure the magnetic moment of a magnet. That is also there in the same equation. You see in the denominator, magnetic moment. So naturally you can compare again based on the time period measurements if you know the horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field already. So for measuring magnetic moment, therefore you should have the knowledge of H1 and H2 for the two places. If you already have the information of H1 and H2, then if you know the magnet size and all, size, weight and everything, that is I is known, let us say, moment of inertia is known, then you can calculate a magnetic moment. So that is simply, if you want to calculate a magnetic moment of one magnet from this relationship, all you have to do is again square it. So it will be m, you can take it to other side if you square it, t square will come in the denominator. So you will have 2 pi I divided by ht square. That is a relationship you will have. So that is also possible. See the relationship here, m is equal to 4 pi square. Of course squaring, you are squaring this relationship, so it becomes 4 pi square. Square root I is I divided by h, and t square on the left side comes to the denominator. So it is 4 pi square I divided by ht square. So this is how one can get the magnetic moment of an unknown magnet, but in this case the only condition is h should be known to you already. You can use any other method to get h, then you can get the magnetic moment, because h is a standard value for a given place, so you can get from standard table. But then h I already mentioned can also vary with the time. So at a given time h you have to measure, so you can use any other method to measure the h, and then if you know it already, then magnetic moment can be calculated. This is another application of the vibration magnetometer. Then there is a third application, which is comparison of magnetic moment of two magnets of the same size and mass. The only condition here is the magnets should not be of different size, because different size if they have, you know that magnetic moments comparison is meaningless. Why it is meaningless? Because we know two magnets of different size if you have, then definitely their pole strengths will be different. The pole strengths will be m1 for here, m2 here. M1 on, let us say, north pole minus m1 on south pole. Here also m2 and minus m. Size, because pole strength depends on the material of the magnet. Remember, this they will ask in concept also. Pole strength depends on what factors? Pole strength m will depend on the material of the magnet, the size of the magnet. Size means, what we mean by size here, area of cross section. Area of the cross section. So definitely two different magnets, if you take that they have different material, let us say, and different sizes, or same material, both are, let us say, iron based, but size is different, then also their pole strengths will be different. If pole strength m is different, then you know capital M also will be different, because capital M is given by m into 2L. So definitely to compare two magnetic moments M1 and M2, you cannot have different sized magnets, therefore you should have identical sized magnets. Again from the same relation, T is equal to 2 pi square root of I by mh. You can get for first magnet T1, for second magnet T2. 2 pi square root of I divided by m2h now. Why? Because first magnet we can take m1 magnetic moment. Now what about I and h? I and h are same because at a given place h is constant and I is constant because these two magnets are having same size and mass. Then only you can compare m. So if the two magnets have same size and mass, then you can compare the magnetic moments using this relationship, because if you now square it again, you will get m1 by m2 as again reverse of the relationship. That is, you will again get the t2 square over t1 square, or t1 by t2 by t1 whole square. You can remember like that also. So this is how you can compare again based on the time periods magnetic moment of the given two bar magnets. This is another application, right? The next application is the same comparison of magnetic moments of even different sized magnets. Now here we have taken the sizes to be the same size and mass. Suppose if you don't have two magnets whose sizes are same, their sizes are supposed different, then how will you get the magnetic moment comparison? For that there are two methods we are suggesting. One is, first is the sum position method, the other next is the difference position method. Sum position means what? The position of the magnet is such that you can sum the magnetic moments m1 and m2. This is called as sum position method. So the name itself is giving the clue to us. Sum position. What is summed? Magnetic moments are summed. Summing means adding. Why? Because position is such a way that we can add the magnetic moment. What is that position, specific position we are talking about here? The position is such that the south pole of the magnets, two magnets, and the north pole of the two magnets, they are on top of each other. See here, you are placing the magnet one over the other. This position is the sum position. Together you can tie it. See, center there is a line they are showing, right? What is that line? You can tie it with a wire or anything. Any thread you can take and tie the magnets and make it like a single piece. Then suspend it and do the experiment. Together they will rotate. But their poles are, now you can see that their poles are matching. This position is called sum position. When you do it in the sum position, two things are adding. First is moments will add. Other thing is moment of inertia also will add. Moment of inertia is related to the size and mass. And you know the relationship for that. That is small m, that is mass of the magnet, here again m means, into L square, length square of the magnet, plus the breadth square b square, divided by 12. That is the expression for moment of inertia of a bar magnet. So you have to remember this also. So basically the relationship will be moment of inertia I is, here again m will come, this is not pole strength, so we have to remember this as mass. I cannot use capital M, I cannot use small m. See, the problem in magnetism is we are running out of symbols. We have to just remember only, no other option for us. So we can have L square plus b square divided by 12. So you have a bar magnet whose length is L and whose breadth is b. Then the moment of inertia is given by this relationship, L square plus b square by 12. This also you have to remember, right? Then only in some problem, if they ask you time period, you can calculate. But when you have these two magnets one on the other, moment of inertia will add. The net moment of inertia is Is, which is equal to I1 plus I2. Now I1 and I2, why they are different? In the earlier case they were same, both are I. because they had same size and mass. Here the size and masses are different. So the total moment of inertia of the magnets, two magnets, is sum of the moment of inertia of the individual magnets I1 and I2. Similarly, magnetic moments also, if you place like this only, they will add total magnetic moment. If you reverse it, that is, if you keep the south over the north and north over the south of the second magnet, then it is called difference position method. That is the next one. That time moment of inertia cannot be added. That time you have to subtract the moment of inertia. Here you can add it. So in this equation, just 2 pi square root of, instead of I, now you have Is, sum. I sum, that is moment of inertia sum, divided by Ms, magnetic moment sum, H, same relationship. So substitute these two expressions here, you get the expression for the time period, which is the time period in the sum position Ts. Now you can calculate frequency from that. How do you define frequency here? That is the number of revolutions or oscillations that the magnet undergoes per second. That is the frequency here. So that is going to be reverse of this, that is 1 by 2 pi square root of m1 plus m2h divided by I1 plus I2 or Is. That is the expression for. So they may ask you frequency also, remember. You have to remember time period relation, then you can easily do the frequency relation. Then they may give you condition like this only, sum position, difference position, two magnets of sizes 10 centimeter and 5 centimeter. What will be the time period of oscillation if the magnetic moment is this much? What will be the frequency of oscillation if the time period is this much? What will be the magnetic moment if the frequency is this much? This is how questions will be framed on this, depending on this one relationship. In the difference position, just the opposite to calculate the time period. Here you can clearly see that the south pole and north pole are kept as opposite to the first magnet. So magnet on top is reversed. Then you have difference magnetic moment MD. M suffix T is difference magnetic moment, which is M1 minus M2. Then moment of inertia, will it be difference? No, it will be again sum only, because two objects having individual moment of inertia, if they are suspended together, then the moment of inertia will be adding only. There will be no subtraction of moment of inertia. So only the magnetic moment is subtracting, but moment of inertia is being added. So the difference time period is therefore accordingly in the equation you have to substitute for ID. I difference is I1 plus I2 divided by MD, the moment of inertia in difference position is M1 minus M2. Here you have to remember this. Which magnetic moment will be higher? The size of the magnet which is bigger will have higher magnetic moment. Because now only I told you the size, it depends on the size also. The magnetic moment is depending on the size and the pole strength. The pole strength again will depend on the area and the material of the magnet. So if you have two magnets of same material, both are let us say iron, then just depending on the size, moment of magnetic moment will be different. Larger magnet will have higher magnetic moment M1, smaller magnet will have lower magnetic moment M2. So you are doing M1 minus M2. Again you can also define frequency in the same way here also. So these are all based on the vibration magnetometer. Vibration in the vibration magnetometer depends only on the what is called oscillation and oscillating time periods. Right. Next what we have? We have comparison of two magnetic fields. What is this comparison? You can compare the magnetic fields produced by two magnets at a point, given point, using the same instrument. So what you are doing is, we can compare, let us say B1 and B2 as the two magnetic fields produced by two different bar magnets at a particular point P. So how will you do this experiment? First, the vibration magnetometer will be placed such that the center of the magnet is at the position where you want to measure the magnetic field. So you have to position two magnets in such a way. You can see that. See, now one of the magnets is placed at some distance from P, that is a point where you want to measure the magnetic field in the magnetic meridian, such that P lies on its axial line. So your magnet positions I already discussed in the box. So there the point P should be lying on the axial line. So this is the axial line for the Mar magnet. In the point P can lie somewhere here. That is how the position is done. Now the magnet position is not this. Remember, the outside whatever magnets you want to measure the magnetic field, they can be somewhere. But that magnet will contribute a magnetic field in this thing. So you have to place your experimental magnet in such a way that you can measure the magnetic field produced by one magnet here, and another magnet also will be there in this. Remember that. So you can do this and then get B1 for the first magnet. Now the magnet that is suspended in the torsional balance, for example, will have two magnetic fields acting on it. It will rotate now due to two fields. There is always Hertz magnetic field H plus the magnetic field of this magnet, let us say, is B1 at this point, then you have B1. Then using the same formula T1, we can write time period as 2 pi square root of I divided by mH, right? So you have m, and instead of h you can write h plus B1 now, because the magnetic field produced at the point now P is due to two things. One is Earth's magnetic field H, and the other one is due to this magnet, this bar magnet. So let me call that as B1. So two magnetic fields are there at this point. Right. Now after doing this, you calculate a time period now T1. Now repeat it for another magnet, second magnet. So for the second magnet, let me say that if you bring it now, next take this away, put the second magnet in the same position, measure H again and B2 now. H is remaining same at that point, H will not change, but B2 will say whereas change. Why? B2 is the magnetic field produced by the second magnet. So now you have time period T2 for the second magnet. That T2 will be again same expression, 2 pi square root of I will not change divided by m into H plus B2. Third, what you can do, remove both the magnets and get the normal T also. Now what is the T here? Time period of the free magnet in Earth's magnetic field alone. So that will be I divided by mH, the simplest relationship. So three different time periods you can measure in this case to compare the magnetic fields of the two magnets. Now all you have to do is three expressions you have. These three expressions you have to now use and solve it. These three equations you have to solve. How to solve? Just to square it and solve it. Nothing. It's a very simple thing, not a big thing. So if you do that, you will get, instead of T, see, instead of M and H you can substitute again the T you can substitute. So these are like three equations you have to solve and express finally in terms of T1 and T2, because you want B1 and B2 comparison. You have to compare the third application. What is the third application? Comparison of two magnetic fields, right? So B1 and B2 basically you have to compare, and for that now you got three expressions or three time periods. Now knowing the time periods for the three cases, you can compare the expressions and your result will be B1 by B2. You have to square in each case and rearrange the terms, and instead of mH you will substitute 2 pi multiplied by I by T. If you substitute, you can try it actually. Final result alone I am writing. You will get a T square minus T1 square multiplied by T2 square. divided by T squared minus T2 squared multiplied by T1 squared. This is the relationship you will get for the ratio of two magnetic fields. Due to two magnets, each magnet is producing a field B1 and B2 respectively. H is common. Time periods for each case is T1 and T2. Time period due to H is capital T. Using all these values, final result you will get is B1 by B2 ratios. So you can compare the magnetic fields produced by two bar magnets at a point using this relationship. So this is another very important application of the vibration magnetometer. So now we know how many different ways we can use this vibration magnetometer just by positioning it appropriately and measuring the time period, which is the period of rotation. So you have to just compare these two here. You can see that finally you will get B1 by B2 is equal to T square minus T1 square T2 square divided by T square minus T2 square T1 square. Right. So this is how one can calculate the unknown quantities like magnetic moments or magnetic fields using just the vibration magnetometer instrument. Right, now we will do a problem based on this. First is a bar magnet of length 5 cm, width 3 cm and height 0.5 cm takes 5 seconds to complete an oscillation in vibration magnetometer. Placed in a horizontal magnetic field of 20 microtesla, the mass of the bar magnet is 250 grams. What is the magnetic moment? That is the first point. And then if the magnet is put in the magnetometer with its 0.5 cm edge horizontal, what would be the new time period? So that is the question here. Now what they are giving us, they have given us the dimensions of the bar magnet: 5 cm, 3 cm, 2 cm. And then it takes 5 seconds to complete an oscillation. That means what they are given is time period also. And then what they are asking, they are basically asking magnetic moment. So we know the relationship. Capital T is 2 pi into square root of I by mh, and h value also is given as 20 microtesla. So using that we can calculate first the moment of inertia I, because in the question magnetic moment they are asking. First we need therefore in this relationship T is equal to 2 pi into square root of I by mh. We want m. To get m we also should know I. How will you get I? You will get I from this dimensions. So moment of inertia of the magnet is given by I is equal to m. Here small m is not pole strength, please remember, it is mass of the magnet multiplied by L square is the length plus B square is the breadth divided by 12. So if you do, mass is given as 250 grams. So it is 250 into 10 power minus 3 in kilograms. And L is 5 centimeter, 5 square. B is 3 centimeter, 3 square. Multiplied by 10 power minus 4 because centimeter to meter conversion. Divided by 12. So you get moment of inertia as 7.08 into 10 power minus 5 kg meter square. This is moment of inertia. Now from this what you will calculate? You will calculate magnetic moment m, because all other things are known to us. Time period is also given in this expression. So you just square the expression left side, right side, take m out, remaining things you can write as 4 pi square into I divided by ht square. In this you have to substitute this value of I, and you have to substitute h, and you have to, time is given as 5 seconds, that is time period. So we are squaring it and putting in the denominator. You will get 5.58 ampere meter squared as the magnetic moment. So the first part is here. Find the magnetic moment of the magnet. That is now done. What is the second part? If the magnet is put in the magnetometer, with its 0.5 centimeter edge horizontal, what would be the new time period? So this is a new position. Why this is changing now? If you place the same magnet in a horizontal position, the moment of inertia will change, because axis, we know that you must have studied in moment of inertia when you studied the concept. When you say moment of inertia, you have to know about what axis it is you are talking about. So the magnet has dimensions. In this question it is given as 5 centimeter length, 3 centimeter in width, and 0.5 centimeter, I think 0.5 centimeter height. Right, see, 5, 3 and 0.5 centimeter height. So it's a thin magnet, and therefore you can draw like this maybe. Now this height is 0.5 centimeter, because the other two dimensions are 5 and 3. Now first when you do, first how it is done, first about the vertical axis we are doing, moment of inertia. Now how they are giving, now it is mentioned in the question that the axis about which it is rotating is changing. See, if the magnet is put in the magnetometer with its 0.5 centimeter edge horizontal, what would be the new time period? So now, what is the 0.5? This is the 0.5 centimeter edge. So now you are suspending it in the other way. That is, you are putting it like this. Now earlier the suspension is from this point. Now it is rotating 90 degrees. The suspension is now done like this. Now if this is suspended like this, then what will change? The moment of inertia I will change. Because now you cannot again use the same I is equal to mass into L square plus B squared by 12, because this is about its length axis. Now it is changing now, so you have to now change accordingly. Now it will become I is equal to, for the second time you can call it, let us say I prime. I prime will be now is equal to m into length square is same, plus instead of B, because 0.5 centimeter is h height, so with respect to that axis you have to do, that is h square divided by 12 now. So this is height axis with respect to the height axis. So now moment of inertia you have to recalculate, therefore. So for the first case we have calculated the magnetic moment. For the second case, since the axis of rotation changes, now we are calculating the new moment of inertia as I prime is equal to m into L square plus h square by 12. From there you can say T prime will be equal to 2 pi into new moment of inertia I prime divided by mh. Now old and new you can directly also take ratio, because new time period T prime they want, right? Since you know old time period which is given as 5 seconds, from there directly also you can calculate using the relationship by just manipulating the expression. Otherwise again you have to put the number and calculate, that is not required, because the ratio now will be only m and 12 are common here and here. In this moment of inertia also m and 12 are there. In the new moment of inertia also m and 12 are same. So the ratio will be only L square plus h square and L square plus b square. So the time period will be therefore proportional to L square plus h square divided by L square plus b square square root. So if you do, h is 0.5 centimeter, so L is 5. Again denominator L is 5, b is 3. So all the square if you do, T prime by T will be equal to, you will get 0.86 for the square root. So T prime is 0.86 into T. T is given as 5 seconds in the question. So T prime becomes 5 into 0.86, that is 4.3 seconds. This is the time period, new time period. Right. The next question you see, a magnetic needle performs 20 oscillations per minute in a horizontal plane. If the angle of dip is 30 degrees, then how many oscillations per minute will it perform in the vertical north-south plane and in vertical east-west plane. Two different planes they are asking the number of oscillations. So basically 20 oscillations it is performing in the horizontal plane, and the angle of dip also is given. Now frequency they are asking, because the question you see how many oscillations per minute, that is a frequency. Okay, so it performs 20 oscillations in the horizontal plane, and two other planes you can imagine perpendicular to this plane, because horizontal plane is there. Two planes you can imagine. One is the vertical north-south plane. See, it is given how many oscillations per minute will this needle perform in the vertical north-south plane and in vertical east-west plane. So two other planes, how many oscillations this magnet will perform, that is the question now. So we know the time period expression. From the time period expression, all we have to do is, because in the time period expression you see we have t is equal to square root of 2 pi into I by mh. Now for a magnet, I and m does not depend on the directions. So I and m are independent of the directions. Independent of the direction. Now what is the only thing that will affect this, therefore, that is the h. So the horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field will change if you change the plane of suspension. So h alone will change. Now how will h change for the two other planes? See, for the north-south plane, if you want to write the time period t1, let us say, that is 2 pi times square root of I will not change, m will not change, but h will become be, that is the Earth's magnetic field, the whole vector. Why? Because this plane, that is the north-south vertical plane, is for Earth, north-south vertical plane is a plane like this, that is parallel to the magnetic meridian, right? So this is the vertical plane. Now this means the magnet will oscillate in the Earth's magnetic field, the entire field. This is entire Earth's field. So if it oscillates in the entire field, you have to include the entire Earth's magnetic field in this place. Now what about the second plane that they are given? The second plane that they are given is vertical east-west plane. In the vertical east-west plane, the time period t, let us call this t2, will be 2 pi times square root of I divided by, now m also same, but now horizontal component east-west plane is perpendicular to this, so it is vertical component you have to use. So v will change now. It is now h will become v, because your b is random. Your b is a random direction at a point, but you can have two components of b. One is vertical, the other one is horizontal. So in the east-west plane, therefore v will dominate. So it is entirely v. This is what we discussed the other day also when we discussed about the Earth's magnetic field. That time we discussed that if this is the Earth and the magnetic planes are denoted like this, see, the magnetic lines of force. Here it is completely horizontal, entirely. Here it is completely vertical, because the magnetic field direction here is with respect to horizontal, the angle is theta is 0. Here theta is 90 degrees. So it's from entire horizontal to entire vertical, this is converting. At any other plane there will be two, for the direction of BE, there will be two components. One is horizontal, the other one is vertical. One is called V and another is called H. So therefore in the east-west plane, this is going to be V here in the formula. So all we have to do is therefore use these three formula and try to calculate. That is what we are going to do in this, because we want a time period or the frequency rather, because this question it is not time period. They have asked how many oscillations per minute. So from the time period formula we can calculate frequency also. So you can see that in the horizontal plane the magnetic needle oscillates with horizontal component H. In the vertical north-south plane, that is a magnetic meridian, the needle will oscillate in the total Earth's magnetic field BE. And in the vertical east-west plane, that is the plane perpendicular to the magnetic meridian, because north-south means east-west is perpendicular to north-south. So it oscillates only in the Earth's vertical component V, because H and V are again perpendicular to each other. So if time periods you want to compare, for the T1 we can write 2 pi into square root of I by M into B, that is entire Earth's magnetic field, and T2 is 2 pi into square root of I by MV, that is a vertical component of Earth. I and M are constant in both cases. So if you square both the equations and common things will cancel, I and M, you will have H by BE ratio. Then therefore time period ratio will be, because reverse of this is time period, frequency and time period are inversely proportional. Inverse of time period is frequency. So T1 square N1 square we have to reverse this relationship, so it becomes B by H. So N1 square by N square is B by H. So N2 square by N square again is B by H, because first case total, second case total, B by H and B by H. Therefore we can write B by H as secant theta. This relationship we have already seen, that B is equal to H secant theta. H is equal to B. Actually H is equal to B cos theta is what we have seen, because I already told, right? B, your H is making an angle theta. This is H. So H is B cos theta. B is H by cos theta, which is equal to H secant theta. So this is what we are using here. B by H is secant theta. Therefore it's given as 30 degrees here. See, angle theta is given as dip angle, that is 30 degrees. So you have to substitute here 30, secant 30. Secant 30 is inverse of cos 30, which is sin 60, that is root 3 by 2. So secant 30 is 2 by root 3. Similarly B by H is tan theta, which is equal to tan 30, which is 1 by root 3. Therefore all we have to do is now in this formula substitute this. N is given as how many oscillations? 20 oscillations. N is given as 20 oscillations per minute. So all we have to do is calculate N1 and N2. So N1 square is N square into B by H. So if you do that, you will get to 21.5 oscillations. And N2 is N square into B by H, which is 15.2 oscillations per minute. So in two other planes, the oscillations are, in one plane the oscillations are more, the other plane the oscillations are less, because the effect of Earth's magnetic field is like that. So when total magnetic field acts on the bar magnet, the frequency is more, because B is the total magnetic field. When only vertical component is acting, the frequency is less in comparison with horizontal, because the horizontal is given as 20 oscillations in the horizontal plane. So only when horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field is acting on the magnetic needle, the oscillations are 20. When only vertical component is acting, the oscillations are less, that is 15 roughly. And when both the horizontal and vertical components are acting, or the total magnetic field B is acting, then the number of oscillations are more than 20. That is how we can interpret this result. That is 21.5. Right. Next problem also based on this only, that is time period only. But see that a magnet performs 15 oscillations per minute in a horizontal plane, where the angle of dip here is given as 60 degrees. and Earth's total field is given as 0.5 g. That is, total field means, what is the total field here? Total field is nothing but dE. And at another position where the total field is 0.6 g, the magnet is performing more oscillations because the magnetic field is increasing from 0.5 to 0.6. If the magnetic field is increasing, in the previous problem only we studied that if the magnetic field is increasing, oscillations will increase. If the magnetic field is reducing, oscillations will reduce. Therefore, here you can see that from 15 oscillations it is going to 20 oscillations when magnetic field goes from 0.5 g to 0.6 g. Now, how much is the angle of dip in the second place? Because in the first place, for 15 oscillations and for magnetic field of 0.5 g, the angle of dip is 60 degrees. So in the second place, definitely the dip angle will change. What is the angle of dip there in the second place? That is the question. Here, first our relationship we know is h is equal to BE cos theta. In the first place, h1 is given as 0.5 g. So we can compare that and the time period because we have to link the oscillation somehow. In the formula we have h1 and h2 in the denominator for t1 and t2. So h1 is BE1 cos theta. Our BE is given as 0.5 g. So we have to substitute. Cos theta is given as 60 for the first place. So for the first expression we can write 2 pi square root of I divided by m h1, which can be again written as 2 pi into square root of I divided by m into, instead of h1 we can now write BE1 cos theta 1 or B1, simply B1. Actually you should write BE1, but okay, you can write B1 also. The second place you can write t2 time period is 2 pi into square root of I by m h2, where h2 is BE2 cos theta 2. Now theta 2 is what we have to find out, because what is the angle of dip at the second place? All other things are known to us, given to us. So the time period ratio is 15:20. T1 by T2 will be 15 by 20, because in the question it is given as 15 and second place it is given as 20. That ratio is known. And B2 B1 we know that 0.6 divided by 0.5, because those magnetic fields are also given. The angle ratio we don't know, because one angle is 60, the other angle is unknown. That is theta 2 is unknown, theta 1 is 60, so cos 60 we can substitute. So therefore cos theta 2 is, if you cross multiply this, you will get this relationship, that is B1 by B2 into T1 square by T2 square into cos theta 1. Now instead of T1 square by T2 square, we can convert that into frequency, because in the question oscillations are given, not time period. So we can just say that inverse time period and oscillations are inverse, that is frequency is inverse of time period. So instead of T1 by T2 we can do N2 by N1 whole square. All known values, if you substitute, B1 is 0.5 g. We are not here even converting into Tesla. Why we are not converting into Tesla? Anyway it is a ratio, right? Even if you convert into Tesla, numerator you will have 10 power minus 4, denominator you will have 10 power minus 4, both will cancel. So you are directly writing it in Gauss only, that is 0.5 by 0.6 multiplied by N2 by N1 is 20 by 15 whole square. Because time period we have as T1 by T2, but our frequency when you do it is inverse. So 20 by 15 whole square. Cos 60. If you do, you will get 0.74. So theta 2 is cos inverse 0.74, that is 42.2 degrees. Cos inverse 0.74 is 42.2 degrees. Right. The next one, the time period of vibration of two magnets in some position is 3 seconds. We have seen what is some position, how to arrive at the formula we know now, right? So some position M1 M2 comparison we have to do. For that, the time period of vibration of the two magnets in some position is 3 seconds. Two magnets means together it is. We have to go back and check the expression for some position. See, please, we have to go back there, check the expression here for the some position. See, so this is the expression 2 pi into square root of I1 plus I2 divided by M1 plus M2 into H. I by H, I by MH, if you remember, some position you can easily write. So using that we have to now right expression. Right, so this is given T1 as 3 seconds, that is some position it is 3 seconds. When polarity of the weaker magnet is reversed, the combination makes 12 oscillations. See, first case they are giving time period, second case they are purposefully giving frequency. We have to convert into time period. That is the only thing we have to do. What is the ratio of magnetic moments? We know from that expression the ratio of magnetic moments M1 and M2 is, it is very simple. It is T2 square plus T1 square divided by T2 square minus T1 square. That is in some position and difference position. So in one case it is 3 seconds directly given. In other case it is 1 by 12 because frequency divided by this thing. 1 by 12 inverse of frequency is time period. So 1 by 12 if you do, you will get per minute. That too it is given as per minute. Here it is given in seconds. So we have to convert into that also into seconds. So for 60 seconds it is making 12 oscillations. Therefore time for one oscillation is 5 seconds. So 60 by 12. So you have to do 60 by 12 to get the second time period. Once you get the two time periods, the ratio of magnetic moments M1 by M2 is T2 square plus T1 square divided by T2 square minus T1 square. So it is 5 square plus 3 square divided by 5 square minus 3 square. If you do, you will get 34 by 16 or 17 by 8. So straightforward, we are able to arrive at the ratio of magnetic moments for these two time periods. They are direct relationship. Right. Next we have to talk about the magnetic property of the materials. I already mentioned that a magnet creates a magnetic field, but what happens to a magnet in a magnetic field? Materials will undergo changes when it is kept in magnetic field, but not all materials will have same effect. So basically when we say magnetic induction, we have to remember that it is the effect of a magnetic field on a magnet. That is what we are going to discuss. That is, when you keep a magnet in a magnetic field, what is the effect of that magnetic field on the magnet? That is the whole point of discussion now we are going to have. Now question will come, sir, in the beginning we have started talking about first in the previous chapter, for example, we started discussing about a current carrying wire. Current is I. Then we understood that it is producing a magnetic field. Then we discussed about the direction of this magnetic field. That time we used the symbol B. That time also I told actually B, strictly speaking, it is not magnetic field, but we are using the word magnetic field. But basically this is not the exact meaning, but more applications are anywhere you see you will use this word, but it is actually magnetic induction. So when we say magnetic field, the symbol should be H. When we say induction, it should be B. They are related anyway. I told that in a free space, that is in vacuum or free space, the relationship is a very simple thing. Only a constant is involved, right? That is B is nothing but mu naught into H, or B by H is a constant which is mu naught. So they are both connected only, so no problem. They are very closely linked to each other. So we are using interchangeably the words magnetic field or magnetic induction. Here in this case specifically we are going to discuss magnetic induction in materials. So in material this relationship is not true. Because when you keep a magnetic material like iron or cobalt or nickel in an external magnetic field, then this material will start attracting this magnetic flux into the material, because these material are magnetic materials. They are some kind of magnetic materials. Iron, cobalt, this is not copper, this is cobalt. Iron, cobalt, nickel, or even manganese. You can remember these four, right? Iron, cobalt, nickel, manganese. They are kind of magnetic materials. Why they are magnetic? What is the real type we will discuss now. But basically you have to remember they are good magnetic materials. They are attracted to magnets. That is how you can remember. So basically these materials are attracted to magnets. Right? So suppose for example, these are they form a particular group in a periodic table. You might have observed that these are a particular group. Transition elements, in that iron group is there, in that you will see iron, cobalt, nickel, manganese are one group. Therefore, now why these are magnetic, we are going to discuss all that, why they should be attracted to magnets, what is the speciality and all. But again I will say that for the time being, you remember that the magnetic origin of these materials is to do with the electronic structure. Electronic structure in these materials. Now what do we mean by electronic structure? The arrangement of electrons in various shells in the material. Now what are the shells? You know, K shell, L shell, M shell, like that. Right? Right. In that again you know that there are orbitals, right? What are the orbitals? S, P, T, F. Now if electrons are present in the d orbitals, then such materials have the special property. So in these materials are therefore called under a broader name. There is a broader name for these elements. These elements are called transition elements. In that again specific things are there for magnetic properties that we will discuss later. We don't need that much now, but they are basically transition elements. So that will lead to magnetism in these materials. Therefore they modify any external field by pulling in the flux lines, the magnetic flux lines. Just like electric flux lines, we have magnetic flux lines which represent the magnetic field. Now how we discuss the electric flux lines in electricity? In electrostatics we discussed that if the flux lines are equally spaced, then electric field is uniform. If the flux lines are diverging like this, then there is a point source that is producing this. Far away you get parallel lines. Number of lines per unit area gives you flux density. That flux density is an indication of electric field intensity, which is of course E. E is also called as the electric field or electric field intensity or strength. Now to understand magnetic flux, just replace all the E with B. But of course here there is no monopole, but you can have non-uniform magnetic field anyway, depending on the shape of your magnets. So you may not have a single charge was there, but here no monopole, we know that. So you can replace the same thing. But in this magnetic field or in this magnetic field, when you keep a magnetic material, what is that magnetic material? I already told it is iron, cobalt, nickel, something like that. A bar of iron or a piece of cobalt or nickel or manganese, if you keep in this magnetic field, then these flux lines are disturbed or distorted. The material starts bending the flux lines towards it. That means some kind of induced magnetic field is produced in these materials because of the external magnetic field. So our basic discussion here is magnetic induction and magnetic materials, is because how different materials will respond to magnetic fields. Therefore, there are many experiments that have confirmed this, that the magnetic lines of force, they get modified due to the presence of certain materials in the magnetic field. So not all materials, that's why I am giving a specific example of some magnetic materials. Suppose for example, if you keep oxygen, that is you take a cylinder of oxygen, you put it in a strong magnetic field, or air, normal air, or even materials like platinum or aluminum. If if you keep these materials in a magnetic field, they will show very small increase in magnetic flux passing through them. That is, the flux lines through them shows a very small increase. Not like iron, cobalt and all. Iron, cobalt are different class. So there are certain materials like oxygen, air, platinum or aluminum that show small increase in the magnetic field through the material, magnetic flux through the material. That is, in an external field. In an external magnetic field, if you keep these magnetic materials, they show small increase in the flux, small amount, very small. Such materials are called paramagnetic materials. It is a name, you have to just remember, paramagnetism. Now there are other materials which will not show any increase, but rather they will show decrease in flux, reverse effect. So the magnetic flux passing through certain materials will decrease if they are put in magnetic field. Such materials are called diamagnetic. Opposite. Dia means you have to remember opposite. That is, they are opposing the magnetic field. That's why they are decreasing the flux. Para means the flux is increasing. That means they are supporting the magnetic field. Para is supporting. Dia is opposing. So such materials are called diamagnetic materials. Some examples are given. For example, water, copper, zinc, hydrogen, antimony. Some example. Generally you can remember copper easily. Copper, water are diamagnetic. Aluminum, platinum, they are paramagnetic. That means you can magnetize platinum, aluminum or even air with a strong magnetic field. Whereas you cannot magnetize diamagnetic materials. They are opposing the field. They are not going to be controlled by the magnetic field. Such materials are called diamagnetic because they will decrease the flux when you keep it in a magnetic field. So compare this para and dia. Then finally, very importantly, there is a third class of materials called ferromagnetic materials. These ferromagnetic materials, I already gave examples, enough examples. Iron, cobalt, nickel, manganese. These materials, when you keep in a magnetic field, will show a large increase in the magnetic flux. That means they can be easily magnetized by external magnetic field. Such materials are called ferromagnetic. So these materials through which the flux increases to a large value are called ferromagnetic. Ferro means anything related to iron. So all these elements that we have mentioned, they are all iron-like elements. Iron లాంటి ఎలిమెంట్స్ ని ఫెర్రోమాగ్నెటిక్ అంటాం. డయా అంటే అపోజింగ్, పారా అంటే సపోర్టింగ్, ఫెర్రో అంటే ఫుల్లీ సపోర్టింగ్. అంతే, మీరు గుర్తుపెట్టుకోవాల్సింది ఈ మూడే. సో ఎనీ మెటీరియల్ ఇన్ ద పీరియాడిక్ టేబుల్లో ఉన్న ఏ ఒక ఎలిమెంట్ అయినా తీసుకొని మీరు మ్యాగ్నెటిక్గా క్లాసిఫై చేయాలంటే, మ్యాగ్నెటిజం బేస్డ్ క్లాసిఫికేషన్ చేయాలంటే యూ హ్యావ్ టు క్లాసిఫై దెమ్ యాజ్ ఐదర్ పారామాగ్నెటిక్ or diamagnetic or ferromagnetic. This is how you can classify any material in the periodic table, depending on whether they partially support or fully support or completely oppose. Partial support iste paramagnetic, full support iste ferromagnetic. మీరు FP అలా గుర్తుపెట్టుకోవచ్చు ఈజీగా. పార్షియల్ సపోర్ట్ P పారామాగ్నెటిక్, fully supporting F ferromagnetic, completely opposing is diamagnetic. సో డయామాగ్నెటిక్ అంటే కాపర్ లాంటిది. కాపర్ ఏం చేస్తుంది, మ్యాగ్నెటిక్ ఫ్లక్స్ని అసలు లోపలికి రానియదు, కంప్లీట్గా ఫ్లక్స్ని అపోజ్ చేయడానికి. ఇంతకుముందు మనం ఎలక్ట్రోస్టాటిక్స్లో అనాలజీ చెప్పాలంటే, జస్ట్ అనాలజీ, ఇది ఈక్వల్ కాదు, ముందే చెప్తున్నాను, ఈక్వలెంట్ కాదు ఇది, బట్ అనాలజీ అంటారు. అనాలజీ అంటే సిమిలర్, అలాంటిది ఇది, అలాంటి బిహేవియర్ ఇది. అంతే. ఏంటి, ఒక కండక్టర్ని తీసుకెళ్ళి ఎలక్ట్రిక్ ఫీల్డ్లో పెడితే ఏమవుతుంది చూసాము. యూ కీప్ అ కండక్టర్ ఇన్ అన్ ఎలక్ట్రిక్ ఫీల్డ్ ఇన్ ఎలక్ట్రోస్టాటిక్స్, we know that inside the conductor electric field is 0. When we say E is 0 inside, this is net electric field. Why net electric field is 0? External electric field కనుక E external తీసుకుంటే ఇన్సైడ్ ఏం జరుగుతుంది, ఒక ఇండ్యూస్డ్ ఎలక్ట్రిక్ ఫీల్డ్ ప్రొడ్యూస్ అవుతుంది కదా. ఈ ఇండ్యూస్డ్ ఎలక్ట్రిక్ ఫీల్డ్ వల్ల ఈ ఎక్స్టర్నల్ ఫీల్డ్ లైన్స్, ఫ్లక్స్ లైన్స్ లోపలికి రాకుండా ఒక కౌంటర్ లైన్, ఆపోజిట్ ఎలక్ట్రిక్ ఫీల్డ్ ఒకటి ప్రొడ్యూస్ అవుతుంది. దాన్ని మనం ఈ ఇండ్యూస్డ్ అని చెప్పొచ్చు. సో నెట్ ఫ్లక్స్ 0 అయిపోతుంది. అంటే ఇన్సైడ్ అ కండక్టర్ ఈ ఎక్స్టర్నల్ ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు ఈ ఇండ్యూస్డ్. ఇది మన ఎలక్ట్రోస్టాటిక్స్లో చూసాం. Now in magnetostatics, diamagnetic is something similar. డయామాగ్నెటిక్ ఒక కండక్టివిటీ, ఎలక్ట్రోస్టాటిక్స్లో ఒక కండక్టర్ ఎలా ఎలక్ట్రిక్ ఫీల్డ్ని కంప్లీట్గా అపోజ్ చేసి ఇన్సైడ్ ద కండక్టర్ ఎలక్ట్రిక్ ఫీల్డ్ ఎలా నలిఫై అవుతుందో, అలాగే డయామాగ్నెటిక్ మెటీరియల్స్ లైక్ కాపర్ ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ విల్ కంప్లీట్లీ అపోజ్ ద మ్యాగ్నెటిక్ ఫీల్డ్. సో ఇట్ విల్ నాట్ అలౌ ద ఫ్లక్స్ లైన్స్ టు కమ్ ఇన్సైడ్. సో ఒక ఎక్స్టర్నల్ మ్యాగ్నెటిక్ ఫీల్డ్లో డయామాగ్నెటిక్ సబ్స్టెన్స్ని పెడితే కంప్లీట్లీ దే విల్ అపోజ్ ద ఫ్లక్స్. Flux lines do not enter the diamagnetic materials. So therefore any material in the periodic table therefore can be classified into one of the three types. Not only just any element. See, element ఏ కాదు, ఇప్పుడు ఐరన్ బేస్డ్ కాంపౌండ్స్ ఉన్నాయి. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ మ్యాగ్నటైట్ గురించి మనం చదివాం, Fe2O3, or another compound you take Fe3O4. Any iron based compound you can take. Some of them may be paramagnetic also, and some of them will be ferromagnetic. All iron based compounds we cannot say they are all ferromagnetic. అన్ని ఫెరోమాగ్నెటిక్ గానే ఉండాలనేది ఏం రూల్ లేదు. కాంపౌండ్ ఫార్మేషన్లో చాలా ఎలక్ట్రాన్ స్ట్రక్చర్ బట్టి ఉంటుంది. అది ఎలక్ట్రాన్ స్ట్రక్చర్ ఎలా ఉంటుంది, ఎలక్ట్రాన్ బాండింగ్స్ ఎలా ఉంటాయి, ఆర్బిటల్లో ఎలక్ట్రాన్స్ ఎలా ఉన్నాయి, దాన్ని బట్టి ఉంటుంది వెదర్ పారామాగ్నెటిక్ ఫెరోమాగ్నెటిక్. కొన్ని డయామాగ్నెటిక్ కూడా ఉండొచ్చు. వేరే కాంపౌండ్ మ్యాంగనీస్, నిక్కల్, కోబాల్ట్ తీసుకొని ఎనీ ఎలిమెంట్స్ ఆర్ కాంపౌండ్స్ ఇఫ్ యూ డిస్కస్, సమ్ ఆఫ్ దమ్ మే బి పారామాగ్నెటిక్, సమ్ ఆఫ్ దమ్ మే బి ఫెరోమాగ్నెటిక్, సమ్ ఆఫ్ దమ్ మే బి డయామాగ్నెటిక్. సో ఎనీ కాంపౌండ్ ఇన్ యువర్ కెమిస్ట్రీ యూ కెన్ థింక్ ఆఫ్ in terms of their magnetic behavior. Any known compound you know that you can either classify it as para or ferro or dia. One of these three is possible. Of course ఇది కాకుండా కొన్ని ఉన్నాయి, we are not going there. ఇది కాకుండా ఫెర్రీ అని కొన్ని ఉన్నాయి, ఫెర్రీ, but we don't want to do that. Then other behaviors are there, super para అవన్నీ ఉన్నాయి, మనకు అవన్నీ అక్కర్లేదు. For the time being we need only 3, 1, 2, 3. So some materials are para, some are ferro and some are diamagnetic. ఇక్కడ వరకు మీరు గుర్తుపెట్టుకుంటే in the next class we can discuss basically what are the properties, important properties of magnetic materials. అంటే మెటీరియల్స్లో మ్యాగ్నెటిక్ ఇండక్షన్ అంటే ఎగ్జాక్ట్గా ఏంటి. ఇందాక మనం మ్యాగ్నెటిక్ ఫీల్డ్ చూసాము, కానీ ఒక మెటీరియల్ని పెడితే మ్యాగ్నెటిక్ ఫీల్డ్లో మ్యాగ్నెటిక్ ఇండక్షన్ అనేది జరుగుతుంది. అంటే ఇండ్యూస్ అవుతుంది అనమాట మెటీరియల్. అంటే మ్యాగ్నెటిక్ ఫీల్డ్కి మెటీరియల్ ఎలా రెస్పాండ్ అవుతుంది అనేది మనం ఇండక్షన్ అంటాం. హౌ ద మెటీరియల్ ఈస్ బిహేవింగ్ ఇన్ అన్ ఎక్స్టర్నల్ మ్యాగ్నెటిక్ ఫీల్డ్, హౌ ఇట్ ఈస్ రెస్పాండింగ్ టు అన్ ఎక్స్టర్నల్ మ్యాగ్నెటిక్ ఫీల్డ్. సో దానికి చాలా టర్మ్స్ ఉంటాయి. మ్యాగ్నెటిజంలో ప్రాబ్లం ఏంటంటే ఎలక్ట్రోస్టాటిక్స్ అంత సింపుల్ కాదు. ఎలక్ట్రోస్టాటిక్స్లో మనం మహా అయితే ఎన్ని ప్రాపర్టీస్ చూసాం చూడు చెప్పండి. వెరీ వెరీ సింపుల్. ఎలక్ట్రోస్టాటిక్స్లో ఫస్ట్ మనం ఛార్జ్ అంటే ఏంటో తెలుసుకున్నాం, తర్వాత ఎలక్ట్రిక్ ఫోర్స్, కూలుంబ్ ఫోర్స్, ఎలక్ట్రిక్ ఫోర్స్ అని చెప్పాం. తర్వాత ఎలక్ట్రిక్ ఫీల్డ్, ఆ ఎలక్ట్రిక్ ఫీల్డ్ స్ట్రెంత్ ఈ, తర్వాత పొటెన్షియల్ వి, ఆ తర్వాత ఎలక్ట్రిక్ ఫ్లక్స్ కూడా వచ్చింది. ఓకే, ఫ్లక్స్. తర్వాత ఒక కాన్స్టెంట్ వచ్చింది అక్కడ, ఎప్సిలాన్ నాట్. ఇన్ని చూసాం మనం. ఇప్పుడు ఎలక్ట్రోస్టాటిక్స్లో ఇది. మ్యాగ్నెటోస్టాటిక్స్ ఆర్ మ్యాగ్నెటిజంలో ఇంకా చాలా ఉన్నాయి, కానీ మనకు అక్కడే అయిపోవద్దు ఇవన్నీ. మనకు చూడు ఛార్జ్కి ప్యారలల్ ఇక్కడ ఏముంది, పోల్స్ ఉన్నాయి, ఆర్ పోల్ స్ట్రెంత్, పోల్స్ ఆర్ పోల్ స్ట్రెంత్ అని గుర్తుపెట్టుకోండి. తర్వాత మ్యాగ్నెటిక్ ఫోర్స్ ఉందా, ఉంది, మ్యాగ్నెటిక్ ఫోర్స్ కూడా ఉంది. ఎలక్ట్రిక్ ఫీల్డ్ స్ట్రెంత్ లాగా మ్యాగ్నెటిక్ ఫీల్డ్ స్ట్రెంత్ ఉందా, ఉంది, హెచ్ఈబి రెండు చెప్తారు, రెండు ఉంటాయి ఇక్కడ. ఒకదాన్ని ఇండక్షన్ అని స్పెసిఫిక్గా చెప్పాలి. పొటెన్షియల్ ఉందా, పొటెన్షియల్ కూడా ఉంది, అది వి అంటారు, కొన్ని అడ్వాన్స్డ్ బుక్స్లో ఏ అంటారు, ఏ వెక్టార్ అది యాక్చువల్గా. ఇక్కడేమో స్కేలార్ ఇది, కానీ ఇక్కడ వెక్టార్ అవుతుంది. తర్వాత ఫ్లక్స్ ఉందా, ఫ్లక్స్ కూడా ఉంది. ఎప్సిలాన్ నాట్కి బదులు ఇక్కడ మ్యూ నాట్ ఉంది. ఇదే కాదు, ఇంకా ఉన్నాయి. ప్రాబ్లం ఏంటంటే ఇంకా కై ఉంది, ఇక్కడ ఎప్సిలాన్ ఆర్ ఉంది, ఇక్కడ మ్యూ ఆర్ ఉంది. ఇది కాకుండా ససెప్టబిలిటీ అని ఒక క్వాంటిటీ ఉంది, కై. ఇది కాకుండా ఇంటెన్సిటీ ఆఫ్ మ్యాగ్నటైజేషన్ ఐ అని ఒకటి ఉంది. సో ఇన్ని ప్రాపర్టీస్ మనం తెలుసుకోవాలి మ్యాగ్నెటిక్ ప్రాపర్టీస్ గురించి తెలుసుకునేటప్పుడు. దెన్ ఓన్లీ కంప్లీట్గా మ్యాగ్నెటిక్ ప్రాపర్టీ ఆఫ్ ఎ మెటీరియల్ని డిస్కస్ చేయడానికి అవుతుంది. సో టుమారో వీ విల్ హ్యావ్ టు స్టడీ ఈచ్ ప్రాపర్టీకి మీనింగ్ ఏంటని వీ హ్యావ్ టు స్టడీ సమ్ వెరీ ఇంపార్టెంట్ మ్యాగ్నెటిక్ ప్రాపర్టీస్. ముందు తెలుసుకుంటేనే మ్యాగ్నెటిజం గురించి పూర్తిగా మాట్లాడడానికి అవుతుంది మనకు, మెటీరియల్స్లో మ్యాగ్నెటిజం ఎలా ఉంటుందని చెప్పడానికి. Therefore tomorrow we will start with what is called magnetic induction, then we will study what is intensity of magnetization I, తర్వాత రిలేషన్షిప్ బిట్వీన్ హెచ్ అండ్ బి చదవాలి, తర్వాత పెర్మిబిలిటీ అంటే ఏంటో చెప్పాలి, మ్యూ అంటే ఏంటో చెప్పాలి ఇందులో, తర్వాత మ్యూ ఆర్ మ్యూ అండ్ కై రిలేషన్షిప్. సో వన్ బై వన్ we will discuss many of these things tomorrow as magnetic properties of materials. So I will today stop here, okay. Then only we can do some problems on magnetic properties. తర్వాత ఇంపార్టెంట్ లాస్ కూడా ఉన్నాయి మ్యాగ్నెటిజంలో, మెటీరియల్స్లో ఇంపార్టెంట్ లాస్ ఉంది. క్యూరీస్ లా అని ఒక లా ఉంది, మెయిన్ లా, దట్ ఆల్సో వీ హావ్ టు డిస్కస్. దెన్ 3 డిఫరెంట్ టైప్స్ ఆఫ్ మెటీరియల్స్ ఇందాకనే చెప్పాను, పెరా, ఫెరో, డయా అని. వాట్ ఈస్ ద బిహేవియర్ ఆఫ్ దీస్ 3, వై దే ఆర్ షోడ్ బై డిఫరెంట్ మెటీరియల్స్. డిఫరెంట్ టైప్స్ ఆఫ్ మ్యాగ్నెటిజం ఉండడానికి రీజన్ ఏంటి, ఫండమెంటల్ అటామిక్ థియరీ ఆఫ్ మ్యాగ్నెటిజం ఆర్ అటామిక్ మోడల్ ఆఫ్ మ్యాగ్నెటిజం అనేది ఏంటని తెలుసుకోవాలి. అండ్ దెన్ హిస్టరీసెస్ ఉంది. సో మేబీ యూనిట్ ఎండ్లో హిస్టరీసెస్ గురించి కూడా వీ విల్ హ్యావ్ టు డిస్కస్. సో మేబీ ఇన్ 1 or 2 classes we will understand all this magnetic property and behavior in materials. So I think today I will stop here, okay.